Hey fellow cartographers, it's Josh with Map Effects, and today I was actually just putting the finishing touches on the cover art for this new dungeon map builder, and as I was working on it and adding some of this firelight and torchlight in, I realized this could be a really fun tutorial to show you guys because it's really not that hard to do, but it adds a lot of atmosphere and moodiness to your dungeon maps. So I'm going to be working in Procreate today, but everything that I cover really applies no matter what drawing app that you're using. If you're using Infinite Painter or Photoshop or Clip Studio, whatever you're using, you should be able to use this technique to just add a little bit of moodiness to your dungeon maps. So let's start mapping. So now that we have our dungeon map all drawn out and all shaded and everything, there's one more thing that you can do to really make everything a little bit more dynamic and stand out, and that's by adding some firelight to these torches so that it looks like there's a light source actually in the dungeon itself. So the way that I like to do that is I'll come up here and just switch to a soft round brush. I'm just using the one that's included in Procreate, but whatever app that you're using, usually it'll include some type of a soft round brush that you can use. And I'm going to turn the opacity of it down a bit, and I'm using kind of this orangish color, and then I'm going to come up in here to my layer panel. I'm going to create a new layer just below my wall line art layer, and I'm going to set the blend mode to add. Okay, and then all I'm going to do is just kind of tap on each of these torches a little bit, kind of build up the color until I get something that I like. And then I have a couple over here, another one over here. Let's make these a little bit stronger. And then there's a candle over here on this table. I'm going to made it a little bit too small. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller because I don't want it casting quite so much light as these torches and such. And then if you want to, you can come in here, and I'm just going to duplicate this layer, and then I'm going to come up to this magic wand icon and select the Gaussian blur. And I'm just going to increase the blur a little bit just so that it's radiating into the room just a little bit more. And then I'll come in here and just kind of mess with the opacity slider until I get something that I like, and I'll just merge that layer down. So you can see that just by doing that, it makes a pretty big difference in just the atmosphere of the dungeon map. But we can do a little bit more. So let's come in here and create another layer. Set the blend mode to add again. We're going to keep it the same color. But now I'm going to switch to a stippling brush that's actually included in the dungeon map builder. And normally you would have this set to black or something, and you would use it to fill in outside these walls like I did with this hatching brush, but you can use this also to add a little bit more visual interest to the torches. So the way that I like to do that is I'll just kind of tap on here a couple times, and you can see that it's adding some just slight stippling around each of the torches, and it kind of gives it a bit of an effect as if the light is catching on little dust particles that are floating around the torches. And it just gives it a little bit of texture and makes things a little bit more interesting. Okay, and now we can come back in here, and I'm going to switch back to this main light layer, and I'm going to tap on it and select mask. And the way that this works is now if you're on this layer and you use black, it'll basically erase away. And if you switched it back to white, it would add the color back in. So it's kind of a nice non-destructive way to erase things because you can always bring it back. So as we're looking at these torches, we can see that this wall here should be blocking any light that's spilling this direction. So you should end up with kind of a shadowed area over here. So all I did was I switched to the liner brush that's also in the Dungeon Builder. And I'm going to kind of come from this line and just draw up right there. And we'll come from this way and erase away that, and we can erase away everything that's basically over here. And you can see just by doing that, you're really ending up with a lot more dynamic looking lighting, just because you're replicating how light would actually behave somewhat in this environment. So let's come back over here and we're going to do the same thing. Just start at this corner and just kind of draw up and just follow that angle. And it doesn't need to be absolutely perfect, just do your best. Okay, and then when we come in here to do these walls, I like to keep a little bit of light here on the lip, as if the light is hitting the wall, but we can erase away all of this over here. And actually, let's switch back to white, so this will allow us to paint color back in, since I accidentally erased away when I did that. I probably did that over on each one of these corners. So let's just paint that back in while we're at it. All right, and then we can switch back to black. And just erase all of this, except for just this little lip here that would be catching the light. And we can clear all this up too. I suppose you could leave this part if you wanted it kind of spilling outside the map, but then we can come in here and just do the same thing over on this side. Okay, let's do this one. Switch back to white, clean up that corner. And part of the reason I like in this situation to use a liner brush to do the erasing instead of a soft round brush is because this light source is so small. You'll find that small light sources cast harsher lines on the shadows. If this was a large light source, the edge of the light would be much softer and less defined. But with this torchlight, you end up with some pretty harsh shadows. So I find that the liner brush that just has a little bit of texture on the edge is just enough to kind of give you the effect that you want. But you can see what a difference this makes to just the whole atmosphere of this dungeon, and we can toggle this on and off so we can see. You just end up with a much more dynamic looking environment, and you can continue to add more lighting throughout your whole dungeon and stuff, and play with adding the stippling to add some of those little dust particles in, and it's just kind of a fun way to take your map to the next level. I hope you found this helpful, and I look forward to seeing your map.